The Greyhound terminal on 5th and Marsh smelled like old coffee and floor wax, and something nobody wanted to name. It was the kind of place that existed between places, not quite a destination, not quite a beginning. At 11:40 at night on a Thursday, 3 people sat scattered across the waiting area. A man in a trucker hat asleep against his duffel, a woman reading a paperback with the cover torn off, and a little girl sitting cross-legged on a plastic chair near the women's restroom, hugging a backpack almost as big as she was. She didn't cry. She didn't ask anyone for help. She just watched the door every time it opened. Cyrus Aldrin walked through that door at 11:47. He wasn't there for a bus. He was there to meet a man who owed him an answer, and the exchange was supposed to take 6 minutes and leave no trace. He'd done 100 meetings like it in 20 years of operating in the spaces between law and shadow. He almost made it past her. Then she spoke, barely above a whisper. Not to him, to the door. "My brother said he'd be right back. He said 10 minutes, but that was this morning." Cyrus stopped. Not because of the words, because of the way she said them, flat, quiet, like she'd already cried all the crying out, and what was left was just the fact of it, sitting there with her, the same way her backpack was. He turned around. "Before we go any further, if stories like this one stay with you, please hit that subscribe button and join us here at Sadie's Romance Library. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from tonight. Now, let's get back to Neva. Her name was Neva Walsh, 9 years old, the kind of kid who looked at adults with eyes too steady for her age, the kind of steady that only comes from already understanding that adults don't always come back when they say they will. Cyrus Aldrin was 46, silver threading through dark hair at his temples, shoulders that had absorbed 2 decades of things most men couldn't survive. He ran a shipping company on paper. In practice, he ran everything that moved through 3 port cities on the eastern seaboard. He was not, by any measure, the kind of man who stopped for children he didn't know. He crouched down to her level anyway. "How long have you actually been here?" "Since 11 this morning." She didn't look at him when she said it, still watching the door. Dean said 10 minutes. He had to make a phone call. He kept checking over his shoulder the whole drive over, and I thought that was just Dean being Dean. He worries about everything. But then he handed me his old backpack and said to wait by the women's room and not talk to strangers. A pause. "You're a stranger." "I am." He also said that if someone who seemed important came through that door and stopped when nobody else would, I should give them this. She unzipped the front pocket and held out a folded piece of paper. On it was a phone number and 4 words in blue ink. "Tell him. He'll know." Cyrus stared at the paper. "Tell who?" "I don't know, Dean didn't say." She finally looked at him. "He said I'd know when it was time." A beat. "Is it time?" Cyrus took the paper. He stepped 10 feet away and dialed. 2 rings, then a recorded message, an address, a locker number, an access code, then silence. He stood there with the phone at his side, reading the situation the way he'd learned to read everything, from the inside out. And what he read was this: Neva Walsh had not been abandoned. She had been placed by someone who was either very desperate or very smart or both, and who had left behind a trail designed to be found only by exactly the right person. He walked back. "Your brother Dean, what does he do for work?" "He's an accountant. He says it's the most boring job in the world, but it pays enough for our apartment." She tilted her head. "He also says money always tells the truth, even when people don't." Something cold and specific settled in the base of Cyrus's chest. He made another call. "Rafe, I need a name run. Dean Walsh, probably mid to late 20s, accountant, possibly connected to financial work near the Port District. I need everything you can find in 40 minutes. It's almost midnight, Cyrus." 40 minutes. He sat down 2 seats away from Neva. She offered him a granola bar from the backpack. He shook his head. She ate it herself with the focused efficiency of someone who'd been rationing since morning. "You're not scared," he said. "I am," she said. "I'm just not showing it. Dean taught me that." 22 minutes later, Rafe called back. Dean Walsh, 28, CPA, spent the last 14 months doing contract work for a logistics firm called Meridian Freight Solutions. A pause. Except Meridian isn't what it says it is. It's a front. The real money flows through a syndicate operating across 3 cities, New York, Baltimore, and your territory. The books are clean on the surface. Underneath, they're moving 9 figures a year. Whose operation? Volkov. The name landed like a match dropped in dry grass. Anton Volkov, Eastern European old money gone completely rotten. The kind of organization that didn't fight you directly. It just slowly swallowed everything around you until there was nothing left to stand on. Cyrus had been feeling the edges of that pressure for 6 months. Shipments going missing, contacts going quiet, a movement in the dark he couldn't quite locate. How deep is Walsh in it? Deep enough to know where every dollar went. He's been keeping parallel records for over a year. Real numbers, real names, real accounts. Whoever this guy is, he built a shadow ledger of Volkov's entire Eastern operation from the inside. Cyrus looked at Neva across 2 empty seats. She was watching the door again. Where is Walsh now? That's the part you're not going to like. He went dark around noon today. Last cell ping was near the Meridian warehouse on Harbor Road. After that, nothing. Cyrus ended the call. Dean Walsh hadn't gone to make a phone call. Dean Walsh had been taken. The question was whether he was still breathing, and the clock on that answer was running. His phone buzzed, unknown number. You found the girl. The voice was calm, accented, unhurried. The voice of a man who was used to being obeyed before he finished speaking. The brother made certain choices. He is now dealing with the consequences of those choices. You have something we need, the access code to his files. The girl knows it. Walk away now, and this evening stays simple for everyone. Cyrus said nothing for a moment. The girl is 9 years old. The girl's brother is a thief. That makes her relevant. She is a child sitting alone in a bus terminal. She is leverage. Mr. Aldrin, we have no quarrel with you. Give us the girl. We get the code. Dean Walsh goes home by morning. Everyone moves on. Cyrus felt something settle behind his eyes. Not anger. Something older and quieter than anger. Here is what is going to happen, he said, his voice dropping to the register that men in his world had learned to pay very close attention to. You are going to stop looking for this girl. You are going to produce Dean Walsh alive and unharmed within 3 hours. And if I find that he has been touched, or if I see anyone from your organization within a mile of this building tonight, I am going to make sure Anton Volkov receives a complete account of how his people threatened a child in my city. A pause. Because I keep records too, and mine go back much further than 14 months. Silence on the line. You're making an enemy. Get in line. He hung up, turned to Neva. She'd heard enough of it to understand. He could see it in the way her composure had shifted from still to brittle, held together now by will alone. They have Dean, she said, not a question. We're going to get him back. You don't know that. No, but I'm going to try. He stood and held out his hand. You said Dean told you to show that paper to whoever stopped when nobody else did. I stopped. Now I need you to trust me enough to tell me the access code to his files. She looked at his hand, then at his face. Whatever she was reading there, it was enough. He made me memorize it, she said. Made me say it back to him 3 times in the car before we got here. She took his hand. He said the world has 2 kinds of people, the ones who walk past and the ones who stop. He said the ones who stop are always worth trusting. She told him the code. They left the terminal 18 minutes later. Cyrus's driver, a quiet man named Fielding, who asked no questions and needed no instructions, had the car running at the curb. Neva climbed in with her backpack and sat straight, watching the city slide past the window with those 2 steady eyes. Cyrus made 4 calls in the next 40 minutes. 1 to Rafe with the code, 1 to a federal contact, Agent Breckett, Financial Crimes Division, who had been building a case against Volkov's Eastern operation for the better part of a year without enough evidence to move. 1 to a man in Baltimore who had eyes near the Meridian warehouse and owed a favor, and 1 to his sister to have a room ready. At 2:12 in the morning, Rafe texted, "Files are clean. 14 months of Volkov's entire Eastern ledger. Real names, real accounts, everything. This buries them." At 2:51, the man in Baltimore confirmed that Dean Walsh had been located inside the Meridian warehouse, alive, unharmed, confused. Volkov's people had received some kind of message. At 3:20, a car Cyrus didn't recognize pulled up to a gas station 6 miles east of the warehouse. Dean Walsh stepped out onto the pavement in the same clothes he'd worn that morning, wallet in his pocket and a look on his face like a man standing on ground he hadn't expected to still be standing on. Cyrus's car was already there. The back door opened. Neva was climbing out before the car had fully stopped. She didn't run, she walked, and she didn't cry. She just put her arms around her brother and held on, and he held on back, and neither of them said anything for a long time because some things don't fit into words right away. Dean looked up over her shoulder, found Cyrus standing a few feet away in the orange wash of the gas station lights. "She showed you the paper," Dean said. "She did. I didn't know who it would be. I just knew, if something happened to me, if someone came through that door who stopped when they didn't have to." He broke off, pulled himself back together. "I needed her to have a chance. She had more than that." Cyrus looked at Neva, still holding her brother's jacket with both hands. "She had your instincts. If you're still with us, thank you. If this story has touched you tonight, please hit like and subscribe, and leave us a comment below telling us where you're listening from. We read every single one. Now let's finish this." The federal case against Anton Volkov's Eastern Syndicate took 14 months to build and 3 days to dismantle in a courtroom in Baltimore. The parallel ledger Dean Walsh had spent 14 months constructing, quietly, carefully, at enormous personal risk, became the foundation of the largest organized crime prosecution the Eastern Seaboard had seen in years. 43 arrests across 3 cities. Anton Volkov himself extradited and convicted, sentenced to life without parole. Dean Walsh received full immunity for his cooperation. He still works as an accountant. His clients now are people who make things, furniture, food, software, and he signs every contract with his own name and sleeps through the night. Cyrus Aldrin's name never appeared in a single trial record. Whether that was the work of careful lawyers or a federal agent with a long memory and a sense of professional courtesy, nobody said out loud. Some debts in the spaces between law and shadow have a way of settling themselves quietly. Neva Walsh is 11 now. She plays soccer on Saturday mornings, reads faster than her teachers would like, and still pays attention to every door she walks through, not with fear anymore, but with the particular awareness of someone who learned early that it matters who comes through. She calls Cyrus once a month, not for anything specific, just to talk. He always answers. He didn't save her that night because he had to. He didn't know her. He had no reason, no angle, nothing to gain. He saved her because a little girl sitting alone in a bus terminal at midnight said her brother would be right back, and the way she said it, quiet, flat, unflinching, like she'd already decided crying wouldn't help, made him stop when everything he'd spent 20 years building told him to keep walking. Some doors you walk through once and you are not the same person on the other side. Some promises, even the ones you didn't know you were making, turn out to be the ones that define everything that comes after. If this story reminded you that the people who stop when they don't have to are worth everything, please subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight, and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Because somewhere out there, someone is still sitting by a door waiting for whoever stops next. Maybe that person is you.